All right, we on in these YouTube streets.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. We are so excited. We are so excited. We are so excited to bring you another encouraging, inspiring, prolific Tuesday at 1 p.m. Bible study. We are so excited that you have joined with us on today. As you know, we have been in this amazing book by Pastors Gabby and Andrew Wilkes Cujo, highlighted as Psalms for Black Lives. Psalms for Black Lives. This book has been amazing. It is an amazing devotional for us. It's a great way to start your day in the morning or before you go to sleep at night. It's a great way to end your day in the evening before you go to sleep at night. And so we're gathered here to celebrate another inspirational golden nugget or wisdom, all about how to stay encouraged, especially during this time. We want to delve into a particular psalm. It is called Psalm 19 in particular. That is the focus of the particular psalm that we want to choose to highlight on today. If you have your Bibles, I'm going to invite you to go to Psalm 19. I'm going to also share it on our screen, and we're going to read it together, family. So journey with us, Psalm 19. And it reads, "The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard, yet their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In heaven, he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom from his wedding canopy, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and nothing is hidden from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is clear, enlightening the eye. The fear of the Lord is pure. The ordinances of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, even much fine gold, sweeter also than honey, and drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned. In keeping them, there is great reward. But who can detect their errors? Clear me from hidden faults. Keep back your servant also from the insolent. Do not let them have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." We know that this is a very popular psalm, if you will, especially in the Black church. This is a psalm that many clergy friends recite before preaching what thus says the Lord. It is the last verse in this psalm that we most of the time give attention to. In this Psalm 19, we primarily pay attention to verse 14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. This particular psalm is an interesting one, penned by this great psalmist, the greatest psalmist of all time, we often say, King David. A gentleman after God's own heart, the one loved especially by God. We understand that this is a psalm penned by this prolific, wonderful, amazing gentleman. He had his challenges, as many of us do. However, we celebrate him for the wonderful ways in which, when he placed a pen in his hand, oh, what he wrote on paper was so beautiful and powerful. So today, words that we are going to reflect on, that our authors, pastors Andrew and Gabby Brooks invite us to spend some time reflecting on, is the word joy. That's right, joy. We're going to spend some time talking about what does it mean to reflect on joy. When I say this word joy, what's some initial thoughts that jump out in your mind? This is a small word, only 3 letters, perhaps, but what's some initial thoughts that seem to jump out for you? In some sense, joy has many meanings. Sometimes it evokes feelings of happiness, great longing being fulfilled, a wonderful sense of peace, that which sometimes feels difficult to attain. So when we actually grab it, we are super excited in life. The irony for many of us today is sometimes we really don't understand the true definition of joy. Family, I forgot to ask. If you have pen and paper, please write down particular thoughts I'm getting ready to cite. If you don't have pen and paper, I want to invite you to quickly grab pen and paper, because there are some useful strategies and interventions that we want to highlight. What most people, first and foremost, don't understand is, in some sense, joy is not something that the world provides you. I know. Joy is not something that the world provides you. Oftentimes, the basic definition of joy is the emotion that's evoked from well-being, success, good fortune, or by the prospect of possessing what one desires. Oftentimes, that's the superficial definition of joy. This understanding that whatever I receive in life, that will then create this feeling of joy, especially when that which I long to receive is something that I've wished for, I've longed for, especially for a period of time. What we've discovered, however, is this is a superficial definition. It's not really a realistic definition. There is a famous quote by Maya Angelou, who once said, if you seek external validation to quench your thirst, you will be thirsty your entire life. What does this quote mean in some sense? In some sense, our beloved ancestor Maya Angelou is highlighting for us something that we often take for granted. Joy cannot be a feeling you experience based on external validation. That's right. Joy must mean, in some sense, something that is more than just an emotion garnered from external resources or other types of various sources. Joy is something that must come from the inside out. That's right. The first reflective question for us to grapple with today is, how do we have joy on the inside that then permeates to our outside. That's right. Oftentimes we are used to reflecting on joy as something that starts from the outside and then permeates the inside. But in psychology and human development, what our authors want us to begin to wrestle with is this notion that no, joy, true joy, authentic, genuine joy is something that starts on the inside of us. And that is so, so very, very important to reflect on. Why? Because what if external resources cease in your life? What if external sources disappear? Will you still have that joy? The danger of a joy that's based on external resources means that once those external resources disappear or evaporate, where there is the joy? Where then does the joy originate or come from? It is so important for us to talk about this topic now more than ever. As many of you know, we find ourselves in the season of Advent. That is the season where we are expecting or looking forward to the birth of Jesus. And there are 4 words that we generally highlight during this Advent season: hope, peace, love, and joy. In some sense, it's interesting that we have this conversation around joy during the Advent season because, as a wonderful biblical theologian is highlighting today, Dr. Raquel Letzum, during the Advent season is where we see and experience God moving in the dark. We pay attention and focus on specifically what God is doing in the in-between time. The irony for us is, how do we have joy in darkness? That is the second deep reflective question that we want to spend some time grappling with on today. I invite you, if you have pen and paper, to really take note of that. How do you have joy in the face or midst of darkness? This, my friends, becomes the ultimate question that we have to begin to wrestle with. According to our authors, it's easy to simply have joy that's basic. Joy because something good has happened to us. It's easy in some sense to have joy based on, again, external validation. But the true question for many of us today is, how do you have joy in the midst of darkness? And that becomes an interesting point to highlight, especially now in the Advent season. We can use the biblical characters of Mary and Joseph in particular to highlight this point. But for the sake of our conversation, I only want to simply focus on our brother Joseph. That's right. We're going to talk about our brother Joseph during this time. Can you imagine what our brother Joseph must have been feeling? To know, in some sense, that you have a particular lady friend that you are not married to, that now one day says to you, I am pregnant with child, and you know you didn't have any types of sexual encounters to formally impregnate this woman. Can you imagine how Joseph must have felt? Joseph had to deal with the ridicule from the larger community, right? People criticizing him, laughing at him, and most important, to recognize and acknowledge, people shaming him in some sense. Can you imagine how Joseph must have felt during this time? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean for the character Joseph to still have joy during this Advent season? Let's talk about this and unpack this for a second. Our brother Joseph must resist toxic masculinity that is existing in his culture during this time, our brother Joseph must also resist the fact that he is not centered in the story. Let's pause there for a second. Think about this for a second. During this Advent season, it is really Mary who is centered in this story, and oftentimes we forget to honor Joseph in this story. Can you imagine what it would be like as this story is told years and years later, almost 2,000 years later, what it has been like, even as Joseph now rests with the ancestors, to now know that this story is being told over and over and over again, and you are not placed in the center of the story with Mary, but Mary always takes center stage. This was a lot for this brother to deal with during this time. Yet and still, our brother Joseph could have easily buckled under the life stressors of what was happening culturally. Our brother Joseph could have easily buckled under the stressors of the shame that was placed upon him by the larger community. Our brother Joseph could have easily buckled under plain old low self-esteem, given that his story is not centered in these moments. But in some sense, we are reminded of the powerful ways in which our brother Joseph, even resisting toxic masculinity, still has joy. Side note, a wonderful, amazing theologian by the name of Michael Frost recently stated, when male pastors of particular religious traditions, not the United Church of Christ, but more evangelical conservative traditions, ask us to recover something called quote unquote biblical manhood, I suspect they're not thinking of the silent, loyal Joseph who submits himself humbly to his wife's God-given calling. This image by Matt Chenworth highlights in some sense the ways in which we are called to celebrate Joseph for the ways in which he carries now a joyous spirit, even in the midst of a larger community at that time and continued communities today that continue to decenter him, decenter his voice, decenter his feelings, decenter his identity in the telling of this Advent story. I know this is an unpopular opinion. I know today, many folks today will have better criticisms of me highlighting this particular point, but I think it is so very important to highlight today what are the ways in which Joseph embodies in some sense true joy, even in the midst of external challenges, criticisms from the larger community, and even his own sense of maybe possibly shame or low self-esteem. I'll pause there for a moment. What particular messages are resonating with you in these moments as you think about joy and the ways in which we are called to have joy internally more than originating from external circumstances, material possessions, or events? And this notion or idea that true joy means having joy in the midst of crisis happening in our communities and even happening in our personal lives. I'll pause there.
We had some responses early on when you were asking about the thoughts on joy. And so Jeanette said happiness and peace, and Robert Gordon said peace of mind, and Kathleen said freedom, and Robert Gordon said peace comes from the heart, knowing God is in control no matter what's going on. And Jeanette called it Jesus joy. It's interesting because people are going to think that you and I, coordinated, because my sermon Sunday was on Advent joy. And so, you've been hitting points that were in the sermon. So we did not coordinate this. This is just the way the Great Spirit wanted it to be. So there, thank you for that. Yeah.
This is awesome. 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 Another point that our writers in this text want us to remember in some senses, yes, joy must be internal, not external. In some sense, number two, true joy is what happens when you experience, in some sense, true joy is what happens when you experience this feeling in the midst of crisis. And so we lift up the biblical example of Joseph now more than ever. But also we have to begin to reflect on what's the psychology of joy. I know. Guess what? There is a psychology of joy. Did you know that? There is a psychology of joy. Most people didn't know that. There is what we call a psychology of joy. I'm going to ask again, please, if you have pen and paper, make sure you're able to write this down. There is a psychology to joy. There are ways in which you can create joy in your life, right? If it is in fact the case that joy is internal, meaning joy originates within you, that means you can create it. How do you create joy? That is the next topic, or under this subject we want to begin to highlight. There are ways in which we can create joy. I'm reminded, especially during the period of African enslavement, our ancestors, while they had to shed blood, sweat, and tears on cotton fields, our ancestors had to figure out a way of having or holding on to joy. What did they do? What did they do? As Zora Neale Hurston has highlighted, how did they continue to watch God even in the midst of all of the crisis that they were experiencing during the period of African enslavement? Maya Angelou once highlighted, I know why the caged bird sings. Why is it a bird that is caged can still sing, right? This becomes the ultimate question for us to reflect on. How do we create joy? Much of that could be based on what we've learned from our African ancestors, and much of this is also based on what we've learned from our own grandmothers, grandfathers, mothers, and fathers. And so there are particular strategies or interventions that we can begin to articulate in our own lives, work towards in our own lives, practice in our own lives that create joy. Let me give you an example. And again, I'm going to make sure I send this slide to Pastor Jackson. First and foremost, we say there are 6 strategies and interventions that you must incorporate to experience joy. Another term for joy is happiness, right? First and foremost, we say mastering your environment. Mastering your environment. Step number 1 is to master your environment. Master your environment. People who have joy are people who have figured out how to master their environment. I talked about this as it relates to, or I'll think about this as it relates to Joseph. Joseph figured out how to take in environmental mastery, meaning not allowing his outside environment to disrupt his internal peace. How do you do that today? Think about your current environment. Think about your current environment. Your current environment. When we say environment, that's not simply the space and place where you live or where you spend much of your time. That's also people around you, relationships, home, your job, anything, any space that is around you. That's your environment. How do you not let negativity in your environment begin to take away your joy? That becomes the true question for us today. How do we master the environment so that no matter what happens around us, that doesn't impact us internally? The second step to creating joy is personal growth. People who experience joy are folks who have figured out, how do I grow in life? How do I grow in life? What are ways that I can grow and become better? What are ways that I can grow and become better? Let me ask you a question for a second, family. I'm gonna stop sharing this for one moment. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to know the best way to grow? You want to know the best way to grow? One of the best ways to grow can be sometimes taking a personality test. There is an awesome, amazing website that I would invite you to check out. It's called 16personalities.com. www. The number 1, the number 6, and then the word personality.com. This website allows you to take a test for free and gain a sense of wisdom and insight about your personality. This is called the Myers-Briggs test. You could take this personality test and it's for free. It doesn't cost anything. You could take this personality test and begin to discern which one of these 16 personality types you are. You will score as one of these 16 personality types. And the cool thing about this test is this test will tell you what are your strengths and what are your growing edges. I hate to use the word weaknesses. I'm just going to say growing edges, right? And we say personal growth means working on our growing edges, working on our rough spots, working on those things that are kind of about us. You know, those things that other people kind of get upset with us about. Those parts of our personality that just bug people and sometimes make people a little upset, right? Personal growth means working on our growing edges, our flaws, our shortcomings. And so, in some sense, this idea or notion of working on our growing edges and having personal growth and being committed to personal growth and sustaining personal growth, that will create joy. Number 3, the third strategy or intervention to have joy is to create purpose in life. So many people don't have joy because they don't understand their purpose in life. Why on earth were you created to be here? That becomes a question that all of us at some point have to ask. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that becomes the ultimate question for all of us to ask in general. Why on earth are you here? What is your purpose? And are you living that purpose? Are you living that purpose? What steps, what strategies do you need to encompass, live out, name in order to move into your purpose? Whatever that purpose is, whatever that purpose is. And then number 4, positive relationship. What gives us a sense of joy in life is positive relationships. Positive relationships, positive relationships, positive relationships, not toxic relationships. Okay, we can't have the Will and Jada thing happening in our life. Not toxic relationships. We need healthy, positive relationships. Not Nia Long and Unduku. Not that. We
No
only want
entanglements. No entanglements.
no entanglement. no entanglements. It's probably an entanglement if their last name, if their first name is the name of a month on the calendar. If you know their name is the name of a month on the calendar, you probably know that that's going to be an entanglement, right? That's our hint. If this person is named after a month on the calendar, that's pretty much a hint that's going to be going down the drain, right? Yes. Now watch the irony of this. Look at number 3 and number 4. Those are the 2 circles on the bottom of our image. Purpose in life and positive relationship. Purpose in life and positive relationship. These 2 in particular are community oriented. These 2 in particular are community oriented. So the first 2 are about internal work. When you master your environment and you work on your personal growing edges, that's internal personal work. But the irony about numbers 3 and 4, these are community related strategies and interventions. So when you think about what's your purpose in life, your purpose has a connection to the larger community. Whatever you discern is your purpose that God is calling you to be and do, that's for the sake of somebody else. I heard an author one day say, right now, somebody is praying for an answer to a particular issue that God already laid in your spirit years ago to create. I'm going to say that again. Right now, today, December 13th, 2022, somebody is praying for something. Somebody has tears in their eyes, praying for something right now that God already gave you the solution for years ago. Oftentimes, our purpose in life is not for our own. It's not for our own individual benefit, but our purpose in life is connected to providing a resource that somebody else is in need of. And when we think about positive relationships in our life, that too is community oriented. Because that means we have to resist this notion that we're called to live isolated lives, that we're called to live alone. These 2 points, number 3 and number 4, help us to experience or understand or learn that joy is not individual. In order to have true joy, you have to be relational and live out purpose that positively helps other people and live out embodying, caring for, or sustaining, nurturing positive relationships. You cannot have joy if you decide, discern, believe that you're supposed to be exclusionary or isolated. Number 5, joy comes from having autonomy. When we say autonomy, that means another word for free will. Joy comes from the gift of free will, the ability to be liberated, the ability to live into our own unique calling. True joy occurs when we experience true liberation. If you are in particular circumstances, crisis, relationships that do not respect and honor your autonomy, you will not experience joy. This is why, for example, every October, we spend some time highlighting for folks the importance of finding freedom from domestic violence. Because as long as you find yourself in relationships or events or circumstances that are robbing you of your autonomy, you will never experience joy. And last but not least, true joy comes from self-acceptance. True joy comes from self-acceptance. What is self-acceptance? Naim Akbar, in Akbar's Papers in African Psychology, that's the name of the book. Akbar's Papers in African Psychology. Naim Akbar, author of that book, also author of a book entitled Know Thyself, believes that the whole purpose of life for many is to find out who you are. Who you are. What is your identity? What are you called, or who are you called to be? And how do you embrace that? How do you embrace that? Once you can walk into true self-acceptance of loving yourself, of loving your identity, of loving your purpose, of loving your call, once you can move into acceptance of that, that is where joy comes, right? My doctor said to me one day, he said, Danielle, she said, Danielle, you gotta lose some weight. And I said, nope, I'm not going to. I love all of my fat rolls, every one of them. I love every one of my fat rolls. And the doctor said, no. I said, yep, I got joy. These fat rolls is going to be with me till the day I die. What does it mean to love all of you? Now, side note, I know we have to be healthy. So it's so important. So January 1st, I'm going to start trying to lose a little weight, and that'd be that. But how do we love who we are? Self-acceptance means, as African-American person, how do I love the fact that I'm Black? Many of us don't have joy because many of us don't like our particular cultural background. Many of us don't like the fact that our skin tone is of a certain hue. So many of us struggle with self-acceptance and therefore rob ourselves of experiencing joy because we haven't accepted the fullness of our lips. We haven't accepted the melanin of our skin. We haven't accepted the fact that we are descendants of a continent called Africa. Many of us struggle with self-acceptance in various shapes, forms, and fashions. And because of that, we now wrestle with not being able to experience joy. I'll pause there for a second in case somebody wants to ask something, the pastor wants to add something.
We don't have any comments yet, but while you were making that last point, I kept thinking of Toni Morrison's classic work, Beloved, where the preacher, the sister Baby Suggs, she got everybody in the clearing, and she began to preach, and in the middle of her sermon, she said, "Look at them black hands, love them black hands, because yonder up there in that big house, they want to use those hands." And she said, "Love that black neck, because those yonder in the big house, they want to put a rope around that neck. Love that black flesh," she said, "because that black flesh is beautiful. Love it." And she just went through it. It is just powerful, you know. So yeah, thank you for that acceptance, loving you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The next piece that we want to reflect on in these moments when we think about joy is our authors highlight a last and final point for us in this conversation. Our authors highlight a last and final point for us in this conversation. True joy must now be given to others. What do we mean when we say that? This joy that we experience and feel is not just for us to hold on to and keep all to ourselves. True joy is this notion or understanding that we now have a responsibility to pay it forward. We now have a responsibility to share that joy with someone else. We now have a responsibility to help other people embrace these 6 strategies and interventions so that they too can experience joy. So now, the next set of reflective questions for us is, how are you helping somebody learn to master their environment? How are you helping somebody else to experience their own personal growth? How are you helping someone else to define their own sense of purpose in life? How are you helping someone else to develop positive relationships? How are you helping someone else to walk in true autonomy and liberation? How are you helping someone else to experience self-acceptance? Everything that we're working on for ourselves, true joy means we have to help somebody else experience that as well. It's not just an individualized, unique plan just for us and us only. Joy is communal in some sense. And so that becomes the deeper question for us to reflect on. Who is God calling you to help experience joy in their own lives by taking them through these 6 strategies and interventions that you're also going through? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We want to also lift up a very important resource. We know that this time during the holidays can be very hard for people. We understand that sometimes you might need to work with a therapist on these 6 strategies and interventions. And so we want to let you know that it's so very, 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 very important. It's so very, very, very important to have a therapist. We want to invite you to remember that there's tons of resources that exist for us. There are tons of African American therapists that seek to provide support and help us experience joy, especially during the holidays. Sometimes the holidays with the change in sunlight shifting during the winter months, sometimes our mood is impacted by lack of sunlight. And so we might need professional help. To help us establish this joy and work through these 6 strategies and interventions. So we want to invite you. There's a tons of resources available for you. One resource is this website, Black Therapist with an S, blacktherapistrock.com. You could go to this website. You can go to this website. As you can see on the screen, there's tons of nice resources for us, by us, for us as people of African descent. There's tons of resources, especially for us, by us, that you can check out. That would be so, so very, 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 very helpful. So very, 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 very helpful. Please, please, please check out this website. And we also want to invite you to check out another website. Now, if you notice that first website I showed you, that's primarily sisters, right? On the front page, right? But we want to let you know that there's also a wonderful, 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 amazing site specifically for our brothers. And on this website, the brother that's featured looks really cute. Let that encourage you. Therapyforblackmen.org. So, sisters, you see how handsome he is, sisters? So, let that encourage you. You can pass this website to your boyfriend, your husband, your brother, your father, right? Right? Therapy for Black men. There are challenges that Black men experience. There are challenges that Black men experience. It's hard being a Black man in America in 2022. It is hard being a Black man in America in 2022. And so there are resources for our brothers. There are wonderful, amazing resources for our brothers. We want to invite you to visit this website, therapyforblackmen.org. Therapyforblackmen.org. We are told in society today, Black men have a responsibility to be strong. Right? That's a myth we lift up in the United States, especially. Black men are supposed to be strong. Strong, 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 strong. But we want you to know, I love the phrase on this page, strength still needs support. Strength still needs support. I often say and wonder to myself, when I think about Joseph during this season of Advent, I often wonder, who did Joseph have to provide him with therapy during this time, this controversial time where he is journeying with Mary and all of having to deal with all those dynamics I highlighted earlier. Who was the chaplain or pastor to Joseph? Who was the spiritual care provider to Joseph? How do we support all of the Joseph that exists in our lives today? Someplace, somewhere, right now, there is a gentleman that is caring for a child that is not biologically his. How do we support all of the Joseph in our lives today? And so please, 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 family, please share this website, therapyforblackmen.org. 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 Please, please, please share this website. We hope that this has been helpful for you today as you attempt to hold on to joy at this space and time in your life. I'll pause there for a second for the final point.
Yeah, we just want to thank you for pointing out that joy takes intention. It's not by accident. It is in you, but we got to cultivate it. And there are steps to cultivate it. You just can't wake up and say, it's going to happen. There's some steps. And so from biblically to in our present state, I thank you for pointing that out and bringing that out and all of those resources to help us have joy consistently. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, family.
All right. Y'all, please, once again, you hear me say this, just like you hear Dr. Buhuro say, I'm so excited. I'm so excited when she starts out. I'll say at the end, please be excited and share it, hit the share button, because the resources are just incredible. And then the tying it together is just so powerful. So please share it, and we will look forward to seeing you on next Tuesday. Y'all take care now, and God bless.